Congratulations on purchasing a Primal Plunge. In this video, we're going to go through how to set up and install a whiteout or blizzard plunge with the Pro or Elite chiller. The setup will be exactly the same for both models and for both chillers. Now, before we get started, we want to make sure that you have taken pictures of all four sides and the top of your shipment. Every once in a while, shipping damage does happen when it goes from our factory and warehouse to your house. And the easiest way for us to prove that and put a claim in with the shipping company is to have pictures of how you received the shipment as soon as it came off the truck, ideally before it leaves the pallet and before you move it into your home or business. If you didn't do that, let's do that right now before we unbox things. Every once in a while, the packaging looks great, and then we unbox it and find out something went through the box or something was damaged. And for us to put a claim in, the easiest way is to have pictures while everything is boxed. So go ahead and pause this video if you didn't take those pictures. If you did, let's go ahead and get your tub out of the box. These tubs are heavy. They can weigh over 100 pounds. So you definitely need two people. Ideally, lift them straight up out of the box and make sure to pay attention to the water connections and the hose connections on the side of the tub here. You don't want to hit those when you're lifting it out or maybe placing it down on the ground because they can get damaged. So please make sure you keep those protected. If you're unable to lift it out of the box, you can tear the box open. That's another option. And the third option is you can lay it on its side, but make sure you lay it on the side that doesn't have the water connections. Put a blanket down, and you can actually slide it out as well. But be careful not to damage it when you do that. Once you get your cold plunge tub out of the box, place it on a solid, level surface. You shouldn't be able to rock the tub left and right. If you do find some rocking, make sure that your ground is flat. If the ground is flat where you're placing it and you do have rocking, underneath the tub, there are adjustable feet you can use. We set them at the factory to level, so you shouldn't need to adjust them, but we want to make sure it doesn't rock. So let's adjust those if you do have a little bit of rocking. We don't want the tub to flex when we put weight in the water for long-term viability of the structure. When you're picking your tub location, please make sure the location you pick can hold between 800 and 1,000 pounds. That's how much these tubs can weigh when filled with 100 to 150 gallons of water, depending on what model you have. Now, most interiors of a home, even the second floors, are capable of carrying this much weight. Where you want to get concerned is outside on decks, or definitely second floor decks outside. Sometimes those are not designed to hold that much concentrated weight. So just make sure that you check that before you pick your tub's location. A few notes about where to locate your Primal Plunge. Now, if you have the indoor touchscreen, you're most likely locating it indoors. Now, indoors means you also still need some ventilation in that room. Please don't lock it in a very small room or closet. The chiller does produce heat. It needs airflow to get rid of that heat. Now, for outdoors, you'll need the outdoor touchscreen. You should be locating your plunge still under some type of covered surface and really out of the sun. So that, for example, if it's 115 degrees outside and it's getting blasted with sun, the chiller's going to have to work very hard, which is going to drive up your electric bills, and the touchscreen is going to get very hot, which could cause it to shut down. Now, the outdoor touchscreen and the chiller are made to get wet. However, they are not made to get power washed. They are not made to get hit by sprinklers or with high blasts of water from a hose. They are designed for rainfall. If you live in an area that gets hurricanes, you do need to locate them indoors during those type of events because they are not built to handle that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is install the touchscreen monitor arm. Now, the monitor arm mounts exactly the same for both tub models. The first thing we're going to get is the arm and the mounting plate. And then additionally, we will have 4 of the short M6 bolts and the medium size Allen key. So we're going to take the arm and the plate and match them up for the 4 holes that hold the plate to the arm. There is no up or down of the plate. Just make sure the black gasket is faced out. Go ahead and place all 4 M6 bolts in the appropriate holes. And then proceed to tighten them with the Allen wrench until they're snug. There's no need to over tighten these. We don't want to strip the threads on the aluminum posts, but nice and snug is all we're really looking for. The next step in assembling the arm is to take the arm and the plate you've already assembled and find the pivot head. Now, the pivot head, we mostly assemble this at the factory, but there is one last step we need to do. So place the pivot head into the top of the post. The 4 holes line up. You're going to use 4 more of the same M6 bolts that you used to attach the plate and tighten them with your Allen wrench. Now that we've assembled the mounting arm and put the pivot head on top, we have one last step before we attach it to the tub. Depending on which monitor you got, the indoor or outdoor rated touchscreen, there'll be a cable that comes with that unit. Open up the touchscreen box and locate the cable. Both of them will have the same large black connector on it, but they'll have differing versions of this end. What we want to do is take the large black connector and pass it down through the hole by the monitor and continue to pass the cable down the mounting arm. Now it may require a little bit of shaking and jiggling to get that to go all the way down. Go ahead and take your time. You'll see it appear at the bottom of the mounting plate. So go ahead and pull that through the opening, just enough to leave a few inches of cable remaining. And now we're ready to attach the monitor arm to the tub. Inside the touchscreen mounting box, you'll locate 6 more M6 bolts, but they'll be the longer versions. You'll also need the large Allen wrench to complete this step. On the side of the tub where the monitor mounts, you'll notice there'll be a power cable which powers the touchscreen. Go ahead and match up the 2 cables. They are directional, so you will notice a little divot that needs to match up on the plugs. Slide them together and then spin the nut to secure them for a watertight connection. Once we have the power cable for the touchscreen connected, we can either push this into the tub or it can also be placed inside the arm. Trying to avoid not pinching the cable, go ahead and line those up and then place our 6 M6 bolts into each hole. Avoid tightening them all the way down in the beginning until you get all 6 in and things positioned correctly. You shouldn't have any resistance to turning these by hand. If you are facing resistance to turning them by hand, back them out and try again, because we don't want to cross-thread the threads on the tub side because they're very hard to repair if that does happen. So they should go in nice and easy, get all 6 in there, and then you can tighten them down with your Allen wrench. You don't need to go overly tight. This is just snug. You should just feel the gasket compress a little bit and then you're good to go. Now let's work on getting the touchscreen attached. If you're using the indoor touchscreen, like I'm holding here, we're going to use the 4 inner holes on the mount to mount the touchscreen to the mount. So taking the 4 M4 bolts in the box the mount came in, go ahead and attach the indoor screen using the inside holes in the mount. Now, I will show in a second if you have the outdoor rated screen, same exact process, same bolts, you're just going to use the outer holes on the mount. Now we need to route the power cable. Now the power cable for this indoor screen, you'll have 2 clips on the side here. Go ahead and run it through those. So what we're looking for is to make sure we have enough slack on this cable so when the monitor turns, it doesn't pull anything. So here, you will have an adapter, looks like this, inside your touchscreen box that will convert this cable to fit this particular monitor. Goes straight in. Now we are going to keep pulling slack out of the arm until it looks like this. Click these little clips down. They'll take the tension in case this cable gets pulled. And then go ahead and give it a spin and just make sure that the cable is not being tugged on as it turns. That looks perfect right there. You can see we have a little strain relief loop and we're good to go. So if you're mounting our outdoor raised screen, which looks like this, my suggestion, because it weighs a little more, is to place 2 of the M4 bolts just slightly threaded in, just enough to where they're not going to fall out and they can hold some weight. Now you can see at the top of the mount there's these 2 little slots. Those line up perfectly. And that allows you to hang it there. Place 2 more M4 bolts in the bottom. And then it's time to connect the power cable to the touchscreen. Now, the touchscreen has a slightly different power connection because it is rated for outdoors. It has this waterproof connection. You'll notice it's blue. So what we're looking for is in the very middle of the touchscreen, you'll see one labeled power. Go ahead and unscrew the cap. And then, just like the indoor screen, there's a divot in the plug that needs to match up. So just sort of gently spin it. You'll see it fall in. And then it's really important that you tighten this nut. So this nut makes a waterproof connection for the power. Now, I didn't run this cable down the arm, but you will have done that in the previous step. So just make sure that you have good mobility on the screen and it doesn't snag or pull on your power cable because we don't want to damage anything. And that is it. We have the tub set up, we have the arm mounted, and we have your touchscreen ready to go. Now let's move on connecting the chiller, the water lines, and some power, and we'll be ready to fill this thing up. Now let's work on getting the chiller installed. You probably already noticed the chiller is pretty heavy. The easiest way to get it out of the box actually is not to lift it out of the box, but instead cut the straps that are holding the box together and then simply lift the lid off the box and it'll expose the chiller inside. Remove the packaging and then lift the chiller directly upwards out of the box. Now there is a drain connection on the bottom of the chiller that is plastic, so make sure that you don't knock that off or break it. It's best to have two people lift the chiller out of the box and then place it on the ground. Now once you have your chiller out of the box and ready to go, you can locate it next to your plunge. We have designed everything to sit behind the touchscreen. The hoses and cables are long enough that you can move it around different locations if you like. The distance between the chiller and the tub can be as close as almost touching the mount here. There is no limitation there. But on the other side of the chiller where it blows air, we need to maintain at least 18 inches. So the first thing we're going to do is connect the power between the tub and the chiller. This powers the light inside the tub. It also powers the touchscreen. Locate the black waterproof power cord that's inside your chiller box. The female side of the connector is the side that connects to the tub. Again, you can see there's a little divot that needs to match up to the mating plug on the bottom of the plunge. Connect the cable to the tub and then turn the ring to make a waterproof connection. Locate the power connection on the side of the chiller. Remove the dust cap and connect the cable just like you did on the tub side. Remembering to tighten the nut so we get a good waterproof connection. The next step on the chiller is to remove the two caps off the water inlet and outlet ports. You may find a small amount of water inside there. We do test these units before they leave the factory. Locate in the parts bag that came with your chiller the primary screen. This is the very first screen the water is going to go through to try to catch any large debris. That screws in to the water inlet port. Then locate this piece in the parts bag with the chiller, and it goes over the primary filter. Tighten it down until the gasket behind it slightly compresses, nothing crazy. You can adjust the angle of this 90-degree elbow. And then we are going to take the Teflon tape and we are going to go clockwise around the water out fitting. 2, 3, 4 to 5 times. You can tear it. Make sure none of that Teflon is inside the water pathway there. And then we're going to take the other 90-degree fitting from the parts bag for the chiller and thread that on. Now getting it started usually is the most difficult part, so take your time. Try not to cross thread it. Nice and slow once it gets going. And we want this fairly snug on there and aim it at that angle. Now let's move on to preparing the connections on the tub. First, let's locate a few parts. All these will be in your chiller box. We're going to locate the 2 stainless steel ball valves that will have the Primal Plunges logo on them. Yours may or may not have these adapter fittings in them, depending on the style of tub you have, if we have 1/2-inch connections or 3/4. Also locate the black drain valve that will have the brass hose adapter on it. You're going to need that same Teflon tape we used before, and you might need an optional wrench, but possibly not. First, let's start by removing the caps that were located on your tub. I've already removed them from this. And then we are going to apply Teflon tape in a clockwise rotation to each of the 3 ports on the tub. We are going to apply approximately 6 turns on the inlet and outlet ports. However, we need additional turns up to about 10 with this white Teflon tape that comes with it for the drain port. So 10 turns on the drain outlet port, and then, like I said before, 6 turns on the inlet and outlet ports. If you're using your own Teflon tape that maybe has a different thickness, you may not need that many turns. Okay, now let's place one of these stainless steel ball valves on the tub outlet port, taking your time to thread it on. Now, as we turn it, we want it snug. One of the things we want to look for is to make sure as we're installing these valves that the fitting on the tub doesn't start to turn. If that does start to happen, simply take your wrench and hold the nut for the fitting as you tighten on your valve. So next I'll install the next valve on the tub inlet. Nice and snug, but nothing crazy tight. Watching to make sure that the fitting on the tub doesn't turn with it. And then our drain valve. Now you notice my drain valve tightened down and the valve is to the side here. That is adjustable. You can loosen this big ring here and rotate the valve body and then tighten it back down. Okay. And the final step we're going to need here is to connect our insulated hoses. Now there's no Teflon needed on these, and that's something some people miss. Inside these hoses are gaskets, so that's how they seal, because you'll be opening and closing these every so often when you do maintenance. So we're going to connect the hose to the water outlet port. Thread that on there, using caution not to cross thread it. Now we don't need to go super tight on this end. We're simply going to make sure that gasket makes contact. And then on this side, water out goes to water in. Now on this side, we're going to connect the stainless steel ball valves. Now this connection does need to be fairly tight. We need to seat this hose connection all the way down onto the stainless steel valve. So give it a good turn, hold the valve still while you tighten it down. We will do the same thing with the water inlet connection. Bend your tube around and tighten this side down fairly hard. We've noticed that the most likely spot of an air leak is from this connection. Final step, make sure your valves are open, both blue handles are in line with the tubes, and that your drain valve is closed before we move on to the next step. Regarding power for your chiller, we offer a nice long cable to try to avoid the use of extension cords, but if you do have to use an extension cord, make sure you use a 12 gauge, and you need to make sure you can waterproof the connection between the end of our GFI connector and your extension cord. We do suggest once a month when you change your filter that you test your GFI connector by hitting the test button and the reset button. If it fails to test and reset, stop using your chiller and contact support at support@primalplunges.com. The power requirements for your chiller is that you need a standard 15 or 20 amp circuit, which most homes have, but no other major appliances or devices on that circuit. You do not need a dedicated circuit, but don't plug it into things that also draw a lot of power, such as refrigerators, freezers, large entertainment centers, things like that. Now it's time to fill your plunge with water. So to start with, the water you put in your plunge is very important. It's important for the longevity of your plunge. It's important for your warranty. Now, if you live in an area where your city water has a lot of minerals and calcium buildup and that scale, that white stuff that you see on your shower head or your faucets, you need to use a filter for the water going into your plunge. Additionally, if you live on well water, you very likely need to use a filter to remove calcium and other minerals from the water that will end up gumming up the inside of the chiller and the pipes, and it corrodes sensors and little small valves those minerals get into and clog up, and they cause failures. So make sure you use a filter unless you have really good water. Once your plunge is full of water, go ahead and power on your chiller using the power button. You should hear the pump begin to pump. Now, because this is the first time that your chiller has been turned on, there will be air inside of it. We do have a self-priming system inside our chiller that allows it to self-prime itself and move the air out of the system. Give it about 30 seconds and make sure you feel water coming out of the jets inside the tub. Initially, there'll be bubbles and it'll be a little sporadic, but after 30 seconds, we should see water with not many bubbles coming through the system. If it's been over a minute of your pump and inside your chiller attempting to move water and you're not yet getting water coming through your plunge, make sure that your valves are all open and you don't have any air leaks anywhere. That's the main cause of why it wouldn't be able to self-prime itself. So check to make sure that all your connections are good. Also make sure that the filter cover on top of the chiller is tight. It does come tight from the factory, but something could have happened during shipping. If you still have issues, go ahead and power off your chiller and give support a call and we'll work through anything that might be going on. But almost always within 1 minute, the chiller is able to move the air out of the system and begin pumping. Do not leave the chiller on and the pump running if you do not have water movement after 1 minute because it can damage the pump. Now that we have water in the plunge and everything's set up and powered on, let's go ahead and download the Primal OS app on Android or iOS. That's how we're going to set up your account and get your touchscreen connected to our system. Now, the touchscreen will allow you to go through enrollment through it as well. However, we strongly suggest that you make your initial account on your phone and then we will link your account to the touchscreen. Once you download the app, open it up on your phone and follow the on-screen instructions. On-screen instructions will guide you to making an account, confirming your email, and it'll also ask you if you want to enroll a new chiller. Follow those instructions to enroll your chiller, which needs to be powered on, and add it to your account. Once you're inside the app and you see your chiller is added and working, go ahead and power on your touchscreen. When you log in on this touchscreen, simply select the QR code option. It'll pop up a QR code just like this. You go to the gear icon in the upper right-hand corner on your phone app. Again, in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a little icon for a QR code. You take your phone, you scan this code, and it'll automatically log in this screen and your tub into your account. Now, the screen is going to ask you once you log in to select your default plunge. It needs to know which chiller is attached to this screen. Most likely you only have one chiller, so you'll just pick the one that you just added. If you happen to have multiple Primal plunges, make sure you select the chiller that belongs to this screen. So that's it. You've been able to set up your Primal plunge and fill it with water and get it online. Now we have more videos online on our website, on our help center. You'll also find some of those videos in the app as well. We cover things like how to set your schedule, how to add additional users, water maintenance, draining, things like that. So check out those videos as well. There's a lot of good information there. One thing we do want to touch on in this setup video is scheduling. Now there's two ways you can schedule your chiller to run. There is a schedule built into the chiller touchscreen. This one does not sync with your phone app. It does not sync with the screen here. I would not suggest using it. It's really only there if for some reason your chiller doesn't have internet. It can be used to schedule the chiller. The one we do suggest is the schedules that you'll see in your touchscreen and in your phone app. Go ahead and use those to set when your chiller runs and when it doesn't run. Now, we have found that for most users at home where one or two people are maybe using the plunge a day, to keep the water clean, typically we only need to see the chiller and pump running for 8 hours a day. So what we suggest is that if in the morning is when you take your plunge, go ahead and run it maybe for 4 hours before your plunge time, 2 hours after, and that gets you 6 hours. And then run another 2 hours later in the day to go ahead and bring that water temperature down. Now, what we like to see is that the water temperature doesn't vary by more than about 10 degrees. So if you plunge at, let's say, 50 degrees, we don't want to see the water get above 60 degrees when the pump is off. So if you live in environments where it's very hot outside, you may need to run for more than 8 hours to keep that water temperature under control, but it's not really needed for more than 8 hours for water quality. One caveat to this is if you live in an area that gets very cold at night or even the day. It is risky to have your plunge located outdoors during freezing temperatures for extended periods of time. While you can set your chiller to heat mode so that it will add heat to the water and keep the water from freezing, there is always that risk that someone inadvertently turns the chiller off, or more likely, power is lost. If power is lost at night and things freeze, it will damage the pipes and it will damage the inside of the chiller, and that is not covered under our warranty. So the best way to protect your cold plunge is that if it gets down to freezing temperatures, drain the water out of it, drain the water out of the chiller using its drain valve, and locate the chiller back indoors. If you do choose to locate your cold plunge outdoors during freezing temperatures, just make sure you have it turned on to heat mode, make sure that you don't get any ice buildup on the grills, and also make sure you don't lose power, because it is your responsibility to make sure that it does not freeze. Regarding keeping your water clean, we do have the ozone generator that generates ozone into the water. However, you need to do more than that to keep your water clean. We suggest using the Sorona Simply water care system that we sell on our website. It doesn't use chlorine, it doesn't use bromine, it is very gentle, it does not smell, and it uses basically hydrogen peroxide along with a sanitizer that's very similar to what is used actually in contact lens cleaner. You only have to apply it once a week. It works great. We strongly suggest it. We see plunges under normal use go 4 and 5 months or longer on the same water with no water quality issues, no funky smell, and it's very hygienic. If you have any questions about how to operate your primal plunge, where to locate it ideally, things like that, please give us a call or send us an email or text message through our website. Our support loves to answer calls. We're very quick about responding, and we want to make sure you have a great experience. Enjoy.